Be ready? Start. The proviso gives immunity to a person who is otherwise vicariously liable under subsection within bracket 1 to section 141 of the NI Act stop. Subsection within bracket 2 to section 141 of the NI Act does not state that the persons enumerated, which can include an officer of the company, can be prosecuted and punished merely because of their status or position as a director, manager, secretary, or any other officer, unless the offense in question was committed with their consent or connivance or is attributable to any neglect on their part. Stop. The onus under subsection within bracket 2 to section 141 of the NI Act is on the prosecution and not on the person being prosecuted. Stop. That as per the Supreme Court observation, the primary responsibility on the complaint to make specific amendments as are required under the law in the complaint so as to make the accused vicariously liable. Stop. For fastening the criminal liability, there is no presumption that every director knows about the transaction. Stop. Section 141 does not make all the directors liable to offense. Stop. The criminal liability can be fastened only on those who, at the time of the commission of the offense, were in charge of and were responsible for the conduct of the business of the company. Stop. Vicarious liability can be inferred against a company registered or incorporated under the Companies Act 1956 only if the requisite statements which are required to be averred in the complaint oblique petition are made so as to make the accused therein vicariously liable for offence committed by the company, along with averments in the petition containing that accused were in charge of and responsible for the business of the company, and by virtue of their position they are liable to be proceeded with. Stop. Vicarious liability on the part of a person must be pleaded and proved and not inferred. Stop. The appellant cannot be convicted merely because he was a partner of the firm which had taken the loan or that he stood as a guarantor for such a loan. Stop. The Partnership Act 1932 creates civil liability. Stop. Further, the guarantor's liability under the Contract Act 1872 is a civil liability. Stop. The appellant may have civil liability and may also be liable under the Recovery of Debts due to Banks and Financial Institutions Act 1993 and the Securitization and Reconstruction of Financial Assets and Enforcement of Security Interest Act 2002. Stop. However, vicarious liability in the criminal law in terms of Section 141 of the NI Act cannot be fastened because of the civil liability. Stop. Vicarious liability under subsection within bracket 1 to Section 141 of the NI Act can be pinned when the person is in overall control of the day-to-day business of the company or firm. Stop. Vicarious liability under subsection within bracket 2 to section 141 of the NI Act can arise because of the director, manager, secretary, or other officer's personal conduct, functional or transactional role, notwithstanding that the person was not in overall control of the day-to-day business of the company when the offense was committed. Stop. Vicarious liability under subsection within bracket 2 is attracted when the offense is committed with the consent, connivance, or is attributable to the neglect on the part of a director, manager, secretary, or other officer of the company. Stop. The provisions of section 141 impose vicarious liability by deeming fiction which presupposes and requires the commission of the offense by the company or firm. Stop. Therefore, unless the company or firm has committed the offence as a principal accused, the persons mentioned in subsection within bracket 1 or within bracket 2 would not be liable or convicted as vicariously liable. Stop. Section 141 of the NI Act extends vicarious criminal liability to officers associated with the company or firm when one of the twin requirements of Section 141 has been satisfied, which persons then by deeming fiction is made vicariously liable and punished. Stop. However, such vicarious liability arises only when the company or firm commits the offence as the primary offender. Stanza over.